Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to our at Temple Sinai. I'm Rabbi Benjamin Zuber. Rabbi Sarah is out this evening, so I will do my best to. The duets will get a little awkward, but hopefully you'll bear with me, and it will be good. We will be abbreviating things a little bit because she is the one who had prepared Torah, and I'm not going to try to read Kol from the Torah because that is not fair to you or to Torah itself. If you are virtual and you would like to download our Siddur, you can find a copy of it at sinaireno.org/live. We'll have all of the readings that you need and more for this evening. If you would like to use that, have a prayer book of your own, follow along from your heart. All options are wonderful, and we're just so glad that you have decided to join all of us this evening. We begin our worship this evening on page 169. And we read together at the top. Is not alone we pray. All things pour forth their souls. Heavens pray. The earth prays. Every creature prays. In life there is longing. Creation is but a longing, a prayer to the Almighty. The clouds, the rising and setting of the sun, the soft radiance of the moon, and the gentleness of the night. What are the flashes of human mind and the storms of the human heart? They are all prayers, the outpouring of boundless longing for God. We now turn all the way back to the beginning for page 2, our candle lighting, and it is my great honor to invite up Laura Smith to the candles this evening.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishayim b'mitzvotav etzivanu le'ahid ner shel Shabbat.
Man, thank you. Sometimes when the candles are being a little bit finicky, it is they do get lit. It splits a story. There is a belief that there are two angels that found to every Jewish home on a Friday night. And when things are in absolute disarray and chaos, one angel has to bless it and say, may it be like every time, and kind of eat a little bit of crow. But when you go to a house and things are calm and peaceful, it's together and comfortable, the other angel is for stool it and say, may it be like this every week. So when we have a little bit of candles, we start to wonder if maybe this is one of those weeks where the angel that likes things to be good is going to have to bless the chaos, but then it works out in the end, and the blessing switches. We continue our welcoming of Shabbat on page 10 with Hine Matov. Hine Matov Umanayim שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. And we turn now to page 20, Lechado D. We will be singing verses 1 to 5 and 9. And if you are able, when we reach the 9th and final verse, if you would rise and turn to the entrance of the space that you find yourself in, as we welcome the Sabbath bride coming into our midst, and we bow and say, come, O bride, come, O bride. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad, Ushmo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'letehila, Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai yadadai yadadai, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, ki mekor habracha, Mirosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh machshavat chila, lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitorari kiva orech kumi ori, uri shir daberi, Kvod Adonai alaik nigla, lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, b'simcha v'torah, och emunei amsula, boi kala, lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai yadadai pnei Shabbat. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Be seated. Well, I don't know about warmed up now, or maybe I'm just warm because it's really hot up here on the beam right next to the can. But yes, there's a question. Some shy. It's okay. We turn now to Chatzi Kaddish, which can be found on page 20. Yitkaral v'yitkara shemei Rabba v'yomad yachirutei yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei kol beit Yisrael Gala bagala uv'izman kariv Vimeru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Le'alam U'al Me'hamaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yidhar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yidhar, V'yitaleh, V'yidhalal, Shed Kudesha Berichu, Leila min bo birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'meru. Amen. The people in the front row, you're throwing off completely.
We got to on your head.
Yes.
Unsettling at all points in time.
Well done. We turn now to the Baruch Hu, we found on page 28. If you are able, please rise. Da 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorach Haru Adonai Hamevorach Le'am Hamevorach Hamevorach Le'olam. Turn now to page 30, and we read together in the English. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according. You are creator of day and night, rolling from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing from the other. Adonai is your name. Ever living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Avim. We turn to page 32 for Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Aham Ahavta, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadata, al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shokmenu, kumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei toratecha, u'mitzvotecha olam va'ed, ki hem chayeinu, v'orech yameinu, Uvahem negeyom v'layla, negeyom v'layla, v'ahavatcha asir, mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael. The Shema can be found before. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. Continue together with the Hafta, which can be found on page. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eh asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinam levanecha v'dibarta b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'lecharech u'shachbecha u'kumecha u'kshartam lo al yadecha v'letotafot b'neinech u'chtavtam amidot beitecha u'isharecha Garu asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem Emet. To page 39, we read responsively at the top of the page. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at His foot. Wherever we go, eternally, that there is a place, a promised land, that the wine passes through the wilderness, that there is no way from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Micham can be found on the next page. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai kamo Nora tehilot osefele, Nora tehilot osefele. Ma'utecha ra'uvanecha, bokei ayam Moshe Zelianu ve'amru Zelianu ve'amru Adonai imlo le'olam et Adonai imlo le'olam va'ed V'nehemar kifar Adonai et Yaakov Ugalo chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. We turn to 43. We read together at the top of the page. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haparesu shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. And we continue with Vishamru on the very next page. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat asot et hashabat ledorotam b'riolam Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. I'm going to win more of you over on the woo. I know I will. It's just a matter of time. We turn now to page 46 for the Amidah. If you are able, please rise. Adonai, Sevatitah, Ufi Aditahila. Adonai, open up my eyes, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, V'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagidorah, El Elyon, El Chasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imot, U'mevi Gula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. אתה גיבור אמרון מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע מוריד אתה מחייל חיים בחסד מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים נופלים ברופך עולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומתום אליו מלך אמית ומחיה ומצדק ישועה ונאמנת להחיות הכל אתה אדוני מחיי הכל אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום ילוכסך ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue silently on page 62. Please be seated when you are finished and you feel ready. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Yatahu Melech Adon Lecho Shalom. Ki atahu mechadon lechol halom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov enecha levarech et am Yisrael b'olei v'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Although we are not a Torah service evening, I did want to take this time to turn our attentions to those in our community who need, whether of body or of mind or of spirit. At this time, we are thinking of Wendy Alderman, Kathy Bartlett, Trent, Laura Ann Borsoff, Neil Carter, Laura Cohen, Jack Ingold, Stephen Gould, Harris, Harvey Higdon, Jawad, Knox, Dave Levine, Harav Miriam Bat Shifra V'Pinchas, Harav Miriam Yael Chaya Bat Sarah, Tim Ober, Judy Ramos, Ray Ricker, Shirley Rutkovitz, Sarah Baba, Marianne Schenker, Jessica Watt, Bobby Wells, Asher Zelech, Harav Azriela Bat Avraham Vasar, everyone affected by the coronavirus and the Jews and other communities of Ukraine. If there are other names to add, if you are virtual, I encourage you to do so if you are comfortable. Comments, and if you're present here, so when my eyes meet yours.
You want to call it for help?
For everyone that we are thinking of it, for our Song of Healing, Misha Berach, can be found on page 253. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi'eberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema. Renewal body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. One of my favorite books that has come out in recent years about Judaism that gets us to think about it in a little bit different way is called Unscrolled. It is a collection of Divrei Torah written by Jewish people, many of whom are famous, but not famous for being Jewish. There are screenwriters and authors, architects and actors, and all sorts of people who were asked to approach one parasha and to reimagine it or write about it in a way that meant something to them, something different. And there are all sorts of interesting things. There's a spot in Leviticus where someone has taken the instructions for sacrifice and written it like an entry in a cookbook. There are any number of scripts and screenplays, modern reimaginings of what the tabernacle might look like if it was built in Midtown Manhattan, the sermons or divrei Torah that people wish they had had the courage to give when they became bar or bat mitzvah. And the one for this week is by author Charles London. And I was tempted for a moment to just get up and read what he had to offer, because in some ways he had more important or more interesting things to say than anything I could come up with. But the more I thought about it, I realized that I could build on what he shared and what he had to teach. In his section, he recounts the time that he spent with children who escaped violence in South Sudan. They told him all sorts of stories, terrible, haunting, almost unbelievable stories. As he said, he heard their stories as filled with murder, rape, and pillage as any biblical tale of kings and chiefs. And then he took their stories and he retold them. He published them in articles and spread their message as far and wide as he could. And because of his efforts and their bravery and their words, he was able to help many of the children repatriate to places throughout the United States to safety and security. But he is certain to point out that it was their storytelling that made the difference. It was only his opportunity to amplify it. He wrote, and that was that. Present-day refugees in the desert learned what had been commanded to the Hebrews in ancient times in the 46th parashah, Akev, among other places. Tell your story. Tell it in order that your days may increase and the days of your children. London explains that the privilege of survival is the ability to tell your story. He was able to let the fortunate survivors of that horrible violence tell their own stories. And while it is important to tell their stories of horror and tragedy, it is also important to tell of our blessings. But when we tell our story, what parts do we include? London rightly points out that the Anakites and the Moabites never got to tell their stories. Do we include our acts of violence and death? Do we, people who understand the enormity of genocide, include our own role when we took part in it? Is that the story that we tell? Is that the story we want to tell? Is that the story we need to tell? As Lynn points out, telling of one's blessings as well is every bit as important and every bit a privilege as telling of one's survival. And they inform the next generation. But to fully tell the story, to teach the perils of power and greed, we have to tell the whole story, both the parts we are proud of and the parts that we would rather forget that we were a part of. The stories of victims and of victors often include the same details. Now, it is easy to skip the parts and the books that we do not like, the scary parts, the upsetting parts, the parts that do not exactly conform to our way of thinking or our way of wanting the world to be. In Judaism, we do not skip. We do not skip something because it is uncomfortable or it is shameful. We read the whole thing every year, good parts and bad. And this week we encounter some particularly bad passages. You shall destroy all the peoples that your God Adonai delivers to you, showing them no pity. If then you faithfully keep all this instruction that I command you, loving your God Adonai, walking in all God's ways, and holding fast to God, Adonai will dislodge before you all these nations. You will dispossess nations greater and more numerous than you. And then Moses recounts all of the people's failings, all of the things that we have done ourselves that we wish we had not. He starts with the golden calf. And then he goes to other times when we angered God, reminding the people of how close they came to annihilation, how far they strayed, and what the costs of our history have been. History is an opportunity to improve ourselves. We do not read the stories of history to revel in violence. We read them because of their truth. If not factually true, they offer us true glimpses into the lives of others, their struggles, their experiences, and yes, their tragedies. And to know that our triumphs often came at the expense of others, well, they offer us the most human of experiences in all their forms. And it is from those that we learn. Keeping stories alive keeps the lessons alive. There's a story that Elie Wiesel of blessed memory used to tell. He says the Nazis came into a certain small town and they began killing everyone. And the last place that they went was to a schoolhouse. And there were a number of school children that were hiding there. They went through the schoolhouse, finding all of the children and killing them one by one, until the last young boy was there. But he wouldn't die. They tried, and somehow he clung to life. Confused and a bit upset, they turned to him and they said, "Why won't you die?" Because, he said, there has to be someone left to tell the story. The privilege of survival is getting to tell your story. We are further privileged to read these stories of survival and to learn from them and to grow. With each retelling, we learn again, as we did when Moses recounted our mistakes, that we are not perfect, that history is not perfect or clean or always pleasant, but it also teaches us that we can do better than we have. Telling our story, the whole story, that is our tradition. We are told that we are to take all we have been commanded, and then long will we endure in richness and abundance. But remembering only the blessings, thinking only of the richness and the abundance that God promises us, denies us an opportunity to grow. Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries cautions us that our preference for nostalgia and for a history that never happened is not without consequence. Right now, schools are banning books about race, books that deal with LGBTQ issues about real experiences, issues of history, even the Holocaust. One of the books on our list is an illustrated volume of the Diary of Anne Frank. Curiously, one other book that was banned in one particular area, the Bible. Perhaps, finally, they noticed that it is a book filled with violence and death. Of course, by omitting those things, they also omit all of the lessons it has about love and tolerance and all the ways that it teaches us to be better. All of these things, all of the subjects in these books that have been deemed somehow inappropriate or wrong or off limits, we know the subjects of these books. We know the consequences of the actions that happen. We know what happens when we do not understand what happens on those pages. And that is why we keep reading them, the Torah included. It is why we return to even the most uncomfortable parts to model how we must read through it, how we read each and every piece of our story, lest we see the bad return with the good. Rabbi Judith Schindler reminds us that this time we are in now, these coming days and weeks, are when we consider our failings and our blessings. Now is the season, she says, for recognizing our failings and wrestling with our past. Now is the time for repair, reparations, and restoration, so that the blessings of Parashat Ekev can unfold and redemption can indeed come. Shabbat Shalom. We now turn to page 282 at the bottom of the page for Aleinu. I would like to invite up Rose to open our ark doors, and I would like to invite everyone else, if you are able, to please rise. Aleinu leshabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 285. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Page 287. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz vayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Thank you. You may be seated. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. At this time, we are remembering Deidre Ann Mullen, Richie Zorn, Jeff Blank, Terry Gregory, Grayson Corbett, Joan F. Nutkin, Andrew Venuti, Gerald Kaufman, Goldie Brewstein, Lucille Alexander, Stanley Browdy, Edna Bailey, Jenna Deborah Danif Cassell, Will Spiegelman, Leonard Fusari, James Holly, Ken Hecht, Roberta Small-Reish, Edward Gingold, Cookie Javinsky, Carl Weinberg, Al Grossman. In this Shabbat, we commemorate the yahrzeits of Candy Rich, Bertha Wyman, Eileen Graham, Margarita Marini, Frida Endico, Judith Golby, Allison Stanton, Solomon Quasman, Shelley Lescott, Morris Leventhal, Jacob Barnard, Frank Shabro, Ivan Grossman, Herbert Pevney, and Andrew Salnick. If there are other names that you wish to share, I encourage you online to do so in the comments, and if you are present, when my eyes meet yours. Kadisha Tome can be found on page 294. If it is your custom, please rise. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma, Divra, Chirute, V'yamlich Malchute, B'chayechon, V'yomechon, Uv'chaye Dechol Beit Israel, Ba'agala, V'zman, Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah, Mevarach, L'olam, Ulmei Almaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnai, V'yithadar, V'yitale, V'yithalal, Shemei, Dekudesha, Harichu. La'ela min kol birchata, V'shirata, Tushpachata, V'nechemata, Ta'amiran, B'alma, V'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shmaya, V'chaim Aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael, V'imru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav. Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Bimru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all who mourn, and to which we say, Amen. You may be seated. All right. Laura, are you giving us announcements or?
All right. If we haven't met yet, I am Laura. Reading announcements tonight. Okay. We are all here. It's nice to see new faces tonight, and thanks for being welcoming and introducing yourselves. After services tonight, if you are in person with us, please join us for our grab and go neg in the lobby. If you are online, and Laura and Chris, of course, will be running our Yisma Zoom. So please stick around to chat and socialize. Tomorrow, August 20th, we have Torah study starting at 10 a.m. on Zoom. They're all the way up to Genesis 44:17. If you would like to jump in, they would love to have you. And then big news, Sunday starts Sinai School at 9:30 a.m. If you have smaller children and you would like to join at 9:30 as well, is it Both of you are just Rabbi Sarah. Starting. Okay. Both the rabbis will be there for the new weekday family tefillah service at 9:30. So you don't need to be enrolled or have older siblings enrolled in Sinai School to come to that. Please do come 9:30 to 10ish. Nice short service for family time. And then Sisterhood also on Sunday is having a brainstorming meeting for future events. So everybody is welcome. They might try to recruit you, but they will provide dessert. So fair is fair. Starting at 12:30 on Sunday, there's a 4-part series for Elul from Aging to Saging that is being led by the lovely Jen Wulf in a sort of spiritual guidance vein. If you would like more information, there are flyers on the back table. Those are the blue ones. There, it's 4 Sundays over 5 weeks, so little gap in the middle there leading up to High Holy Days. On Tuesday from 12 to 1, there is open lunch with the rabbis. You do have to bring your own lunch, but you get to pick the brains of our lovely rabbis who are otherwise quite busy, so it's a good opportunity. And then next Friday, we will be back here for Kabbalat Shabbat services. Thanks.
All right. All right, we will close this evening with Adon Olam, which can be found on page 321. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa B'chefso Kol Azamelech Shemo Nikra Nacharei Kichot HaKol Levado Imlok Nohora V'hu Haya V'hu Oveh V'hu Yeh B'tifara V'hu Echad V'ein Sheni Lehamshilo Lehachbira B'li Reshit B'li Tachlit V'lo ha'oz v'hamizra V'hu Eli V'chai Goali V'tzur Chevli V'yetz Hara V'hu Nisi Umanos Li Menat Kosi B'yom Ekra B'yado Avkid Ruchi V'yetishan V'yahira V'im Ruchi Giviyati Adonai Li V'lo ira. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And before you go, I have finished here. It can be found on page 5 in your prayer books. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho Yahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lemahase bereshit ki hu yom techila lamikra kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'char Otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodechecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. Smooth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody.